What's going on, guys? Dirtsheet clocking in from the Spoiler Alert Network here with Showtime for another top 5 discussions list of things and stuff. What we are going to be discussing today is our top 5 heel and or face turns in wrestling. And for those of you who don't know, although we've done 2 videos on it now, get with the program. Heels and faces in wrestling. Heels are the bad guys, faces are the good guys. So we are going to be discussing our top 5 favorite or most memorable ones where one of them jumped ship to the other side. So I guess I will go ahead and get it started.
Alright.
And my top 5 is going a little back, and by a little I mean like 14 years or so. This was when Stone Cold Steve Austin went corporate, and this happened at WrestleMania and his
17.
Yes, in his match with The Rock. Vince McMahon came out to the ring and handed Stone Cold a steel chair after, I believe, knocking out the ref, or the ref was already knocked out, and then Stone Cold beat down The Rock with the steel chair and joined Vince McMahon as a corporate lackey. Honestly, looking back on it, it was kind of fruitless. It wasn't needed. Stone Cold didn't need the chair. Stone Cold even said in an interview he regretted this because it didn't work at all. He was supposed to be this mega heel aligned with Vince McMahon because he's obviously never got along with Vince McMahon, but instead he turned into kind of this like joke character, and he was running around with Kurt Angle and all kinds of other people who have sided with Vince McMahon and were team corporate. This was whenever the What was born.
Mm-hmm.
What?
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 So, yeah, that thing. We all get a little sick of that. But, really, honestly, the reason it's most memorable for me is because it didn't work at all. This was supposed to get fans to despise Stone Cold Steve Austin and kind of really tear down the fabric of his entire character, and it just didn't work like that. Fans just didn't buy it. They were too smart for it, really. I'm sure it got a couple people, but it didn't really, it was a bust. And that's my 5th most memorable, my fault. What you got, Showtime?
Yeah, I think the problem there is that nobody really wanted to see Austin as a heel.
Not really. It was just so late in his career.
Yeah, it was a weird timing. If it had happened sooner, then it would have made more sense, I think. But the last couple years of his career, it didn't make much sense. But moving on to my number 5 is Seth Rollins turning on the Shield. This was a huge moment in recent memory for heel turns and face turns. And this is the first domino that fell that started Seth Rollins on his current path of just being a megastar, kind of, in the WWE. Because it was pretty clear that Roman Reigns was always going to be big.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. This set Seth Rollins up as like the perfect heel. The fans hated it. Nobody wanted to see the Shield break up. Nobody wanted to see Rollins attacking Reigns and Ambrose with a chair. Nobody wanted that to happen, and everybody was shocked by it at the time. And it turned out pretty well for Seth. He became WWE champion, and he stayed on top for a long time. And he feuded with some of the best in the business. And it was great. He had matches with Sting, with Cena, with Reigns, with Ambrose. Everything about that time period for Seth was great, and it all started because he decided to turn on the Shield and join the Authority. And it was a great character development for him, but it was a dastardly move for fans of the Shield. And that's my number 5. What do you got for number 4?
So, my number 4 is actually very recent. Well, not very, like in the last 2 years. And
everything is not alright.
It actually kind of follows my number 5 pick in the terms of it just didn't work the way they planned it to, but God did it work. Becky Lynch transforming herself into the Man.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she was supposed to be a heel. This was supposed to be a heel turn. It did not work that way. The fans they got behind everything that Becky Lynch stood for and was representing, and it launched Becky Lynch into stardom. She is I think, the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion.
I believe so.
Like ever right now, and she has defended the title against some of the best female superstars, pinning Ronda Rousey, albeit very controversially, but still nonetheless, going toe-to-toe with Shayna Baszler, Bayley, Charlotte, you name it, she's faced them. Becky Lynch has become one of the biggest stars, not just female, but stars in the WWE. She is arguably the face of Raw right now.
Mm-hmm.
When you think Raw, you think Becky Lynch. And it all started with her descent into this character of the man. Whenever she broke out on her own, she started doing things for herself, by herself, because she can. She didn't want to appease the fans anymore, but in doing so, in being spiteful and doing what was best for herself, she put herself on this path to be great, and the fans loved it and ate it up.
Yeah. It's weird that Becky's like the face of Raw because they were using her as like the #1 branding tool for SmackDown.
Yeah.
When SmackDown moved to Fox.
Yep.
But just the thought that they would use her as the #1 person to promote for this huge $1 billion deal of moving SmackDown to the Fox network just shows that she is one of the biggest stars in the company.
Yeah.
And it's all because of that change of making her the man, Becky Lynch.
Yep. So, what you got for your number 4?
My number 4 is Daniel Bryan's heel turn after winning the World Heavyweight Championship. At the time, the fans were behind him after he won the Money in the Bank contract. AJ Lee was following him around, and they had like a weird kind of relationship going on. And then after he won this, the World Heavyweight Championship, he started being, I thought it was comedic, but he was being just this douchey, abusive boyfriend to AJ Lee. And I thought it was so entertaining. AJ would just say like some cute little stuff, and Daniel would just look at her and just say, "Shut up, AJ." It probably wasn't supposed to be funny, but I enjoyed it as an entertaining moment. And after Daniel Bryan pinned the Big Show, and then he would just find the weaseliest
Yeah, he did.
the
So
weaseliest
greasy.
ways to get out of matches and still hold on to his title. And it was incredible. And he made this work from, what was it, the end of 2011. So like September of 2011, he was the World Heavyweight Champion all the way up until April of 2012 when he lost the World Heavyweight Championship to Sheamus in like 4 seconds at WrestleMania.
Roll kick.
Yeah.
Kiss of bad luck. I remember.
Yeah. It was a little ironic because he got the kiss from AJ Lee after being an abusive boyfriend or whatever, and then just got kicked in the face and lost the
Sheamus,
title.
I don't even know if Sheamus realized that it happened that quick, because after he pinned Daniel Bryan, he was just smiling and giggling, didn't realize that the match was over.
Yep.
It was poor Daniel.
Yeah.
So,
That was my number 4 heel turn. What do you got for number 3?
my number 3 on my list is actually probably one of the more recent turns on the roster, is Seth Rollins aligning himself with the AOP to become the Messiah of Monday Night Raw. And the reason this one gets me is because for the last year and a half, Seth Rollins has been the guy on Raw. Seth Rollins has been the workhorse of Raw. It's been Monday Night Rollins. And he's chased after Brock Lesnar. He's beat Brock Lesnar twice in the same year.
Yep.
Not many superstars on the roster can say that. He had an incredible year, incredible 2 years really, and he's been the super face. He's been the guy on Raw. And then all of a sudden he just changed his entire demeanor. And he got spiteful, and not hateful, but resentful towards the fans, saying that everything he did the last year or 2 wasn't good enough for them. So now he's forcing change on them. He's saying he knows what's best for the WWE Universe, for the fans of the WWE Universe, and he's going to give it to them whether they like him or not. So he did that by aligning himself with one of the biggest heel tag teams on the roster in the AOP. These are some big dudes. Big, mean dudes. And they have just been running a rough shot until Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe and the Big Show previously have been taking it to him. But nonetheless, this is just, it was literally a complete flippant character. It's nothing we've never seen before. As Showtime mentioned, Seth Rollins stabbed his Shield brothers in the back, but there's something different about this one. It's not, Seth Rollins isn't doing it for his own betterment or his own good. He really feels like this is what the fans of the WWE Universe need, is a dictator. He's the Hitler of wrestling right now. And that's why this one makes my list. What you got, Showtime?
My number 3 is a face turn. This is when Dolph Ziggler won the World Heavyweight Championship. It was right after, was it WrestleMania 28 or 29 the night after? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
One of the biggest pops of all time when Dolph Ziggler came out and snatched the World Heavyweight Championship from Alberto Del Rio. And it was just a humongous moment. It wasn't like, I don't even know if you would consider it a face turn, really.
But God, it seemed like it.
It just, everybody in the building was behind him. I was behind him. I had been behind Ziggler for a long time at that point. Not so much anymore, because it's just the same all the time. But at that time, I was behind Ziggler more than I had been behind anybody in a long time. And just that single moment where he won the World Heavyweight Championship was just validation for everything that I had been feeling for a long time. And I felt like everybody in that arena that night felt the same way I did. And it felt like a face turn. Although in reality, I think he got kicked in the face like a month later, got a concussion, and took like 6 months off. The story of his career, made out of glass. But that's my number 3.
My number 2 would be number 1 at any other time, but you guys will know why my number 1 is my number 1 when we get to my number 1 after my number 2 on my top 5. So, my number 2 is Hulk Hogan going to WCW and turning his back on the fans of wrestling and founding the NWO. Again, this was just such a big moment, not just for myself, for all of wrestling, because all we had known Hulk Hogan as prior to this is the superhero of wrestling. Eat your vitamins, say your prayers, work hard, and he was the good guy, the goodest guy. He was such a good ball. But
he was America.
Exactly. This man was America. And it was a big change to see him go from this hero, role model icon to this overall piece of garbage in WCW. And the way that he started talking to people, started talking to Mean Gene Okerlund, started talking just to fans, like, it got to the point where fans were, which I remember seeing fans throw garbage into the ring. Not just a little bit, like all the garbage into the ring at these 3 guys, just trying to get them to leave because they didn't want to hear it, they didn't want to see him anymore. It was a big turn. It was probably one of the biggest heel turns I've ever seen in my life, honestly.
Yeah.
It was that big.
Yep. I think as far as impact goes, as like a changing force, it's probably the biggest of all time.
Yeah.
If it, like, birthing the NWO, it's probably one of the biggest of all time. It didn't make my list at all.
I felt like I was doing something wrong if I didn't put it on here. No. But, because I don't really, like, I was like 7, 8, so I don't remember it, but I remember watching about it both as I got older and a little bit as a kid.
I'm pretty sure I was like 7, so I don't think you were born yet. But that's fine.
Oh, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't remember it, but I remember it. So, what you got, Showtime?
So my number 2, I have Triple H turning on Shawn Michaels. So, after Shawn Michaels was injured in whatever year that happened.
2010.
Yeah, sure. And then he came back in, what was it, 2002?
2012.
Okay. Let's say 2002. And we thought that we were going to get a DX reunion on Raw, and they were doing the entrance and the music and everything, and then they're doing their little suck it thing, and then Triple H just does a little pedigree on Shawn Michaels, and just kicks off a rivalry
Out
between
of
the two.
nowhere.
Yeah. So this was a huge moment because it plotted out the course of history from that moment all the way up until, I want to say, WrestleMania 2004. So like 2 full years of this company were changed because Triple H turned on Shawn Michaels on that night.
Remember their last man standing match?
Yeah, I remember a lot of their matches.
It got ugly.
I remember specifically, I think it was a non-sanctioned match. We might be talking about the same match though, where Triple H just rammed a sledgehammer into Shawn Michaels' back.
Yep, that's the one I'm talking about.
That was SummerSlam 2002. That was difficult to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if that was a non-sanctioned match. I feel like that was a regular match, and that happened after the match was over. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I remember a non-sanctioned match. I remember a last man standing match. And then, yeah, I think you're right. I think this was just an assault after the match, or maybe Triple H got intentionally disqualified because he just didn't give a shit. He just wanted to hurt Michaels, and it was difficult to see with your eyeballs.
Yeah, it was hard to watch, and all that was because of the surprise of seeing Triple H turn on Shawn Michaels on Shawn's return to Monday Night Raw, and that was my number 2.
My number 1 on heel face turns is actually MJF. Now, granted, he was only face for like 3 weeks, if that.
And borderline face, really. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
But MJF stabbing or more or less kicking Cody in the balls was one of the biggest heel turn or betrayals I've ever seen in my life. Now, what it did was set MJF up on this, it skyrocketed. It absolutely shot him towards the top of AEW. Not just AEW, but maybe wrestling. He's one of the hottest talked about subjects in wrestling now. And you just despise the man. And you love to despise the man. You just look at it and he cost Cody an opportunity at a world championship ever.
Ever.
In AEW. Cody will never challenge for a world title. This is supposedly one of MJF's best friends was Cody, his mentor. It was just, you should have seen it coming, but you didn't see it coming. So it was a huge surprise to happen nonetheless. And Cody didn't even really lose the match. MJF threw in the towel, called it for him. And now he's running around talking about he's making ridiculous stipulations for Cody to have a match with him, saying just the worst things about Cody. MJF can talk, that's for sure. So, but it set him on such an upward trajectory that it's going to be hard to forget this one for a while, and it's still so fresh. That's why this one is my number 1.
Well, the thing about it for me is that when AEW started, MJF was like a pretty big deal heel.
Yeah.
And then whenever the Cody and Jericho feud started up, MJF started to support Cody. It was like he was still a dick to everybody else, but he was best friends with Cody, and his support for that was garnering him support as a babyface, which, like you said, was very short-lived, but still seeing him turn on Cody after such a short time was a big deal, and it's going to be a big deal in AEW's.
I'm feeling like this rivalry could potentially set the course for AEW.
Yeah, for sure.
For the next several years.
Yep.
It's going to be a big deal, so definitely stay tuned for it. But what's your number 1, Showtime?
And I think you're going to like this one. My number 1 is, of course, Ciampa turning on Gargano. So at TakeOver Chicago, Ciampa and Gargano, DIY, have their tag team match. I don't remember who it was against. The Revival, maybe?
It was the Revival.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was the Triple Threat with the AOP. Or maybe it was just against the AOP. I feel like...
It was some kind of ladder match.
I feel like it was the AOP. It was the AOP.
It was some kind of ladder match, and Gargano and Ciampa were walking to the back, and they were walking up the stage, and the little infographic, the little thingamajig that says it's the end of the show flashed, and then it went off, and then Ciampa just grabs the back of Gargano's head and flings him into the stage. and
Like
just
a ragdoll.
just
A wet noodle.
turns on him.
A damn wig.
Just turns on him and just starts kicking out of him, and just all this frustration from failure after failure, and anything that's going on in Ciampa's head is just all coming out on Gargano, and all these frustrations, and they're just built up, and now he's just taking it all out on Gargano as if it's all his fault. They're just throwing away this friendship, and it was awful. So people are just people just start calling Ciampa a bald. Like, people at Full Sail are just chanting "You bald" at Ciampa, and at this point, Ciampa doesn't have entrance music anymore, and he's just coming out to the sound of boos. And this sets a path for Ciampa and Gargano to have this intense rivalry.
Almost a year long.
Well, yeah.
Actually,
it was over a year because of Ciampa's injury. If Ciampa hadn't got injured, it wouldn't have lasted as long as it did. But with him being out for so long, they had to shelve it. Gargano had to find other stuff to do, and it was hard. It doesn't matter. Ciampa and Gargano are just destined to be intertwined forever, I think. I'm pretty sure they're going to cross paths again.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I will always be here for this rivalry. But Ciampa turning on Gargano that night at NXT TakeOver Chicago was a huge moment for me and for NXT, for wrestling as a whole.
Do you remember when it was before Ciampa went down again previously, but Gargano and Ciampa teamed for some reason? I think it was on an NXT Weekly show, and I can't remember what it was about, but maybe it was whenever they were experimenting on the main card.
Oh, when they got called out.
Yeah, and Ciampa went to slam. He went to do the same exact thing. He went to ram Gargano's head into the LED board after a match, but Gargano caught him, did one of these, and then threw Ciampa into it and kicked the out of Ciampa. It was one of the sweetest things I've ever seen in my
I
life.
feel like that was in the Dusty Classic tournament for some reason. Was it?
I feel like they teamed up again. They teamed up again at the Dusty Classic, and I think it was, I can't remember who they lost to. I don't know if it was Aleister Black and Ricochet,
Maybe.
but they lost, and Tommaso tried to turn on Gargano again. Gargano wasn't having it, and that set up this feud again, but it was shortly after that Ciampa went down with a neck injury.
Yep. And now we're just waiting for their paths to cross again.
Alright guys, thanks for joining us for another Top 5 discussion. Be sure to check out more of these videos if you like them. Let us know what your top 5 favorite heel or face turns were. Check out more of our top 5 discussions on YouTube. Check out our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, Google us, PW Teewees.
ProWrestlingTees.com/TSAN.
So, alright guys, I'm Dirtsheet, this is Showtime, we are the Spoiler Alert Network, and remember to stay dedicated.